All right, hey folks, this is Philosophy 255, Professor Diffley, Chapter 7, Lecture Video 3. We were finished the last video here on sexual harassment. Moving on. So not only is prohibition against sexual relationships with your clients and those around them there in the code, it is also a crime. It's against the law in all 50 U.S. states. Here in Massachusetts, this is covered in 258, Code of Massachusetts Regulations, 20.06, sexual misconduct. Again, this mirrors very much what's in the code. With client, with any prospective or with any former client is a big thing here. So it's any prospective or any former client. Provide professional service or professional consultation. So that means even, once having them, not seeing them constantly as your client, but even an intake or any engagement with them. I would say even if they're at your agency, this should be avoided. Second part here really talks about the concept of sexual harassment or assault here, and obviously more prohibitions against that, legal as well. And this one at the end here really talks about this also covers any prospective foreign client in any form of sexual relation or activity or contact with the social worker by falsely representing that the sexual relationship or contact will or may be of diagnostic or therapeutic benefit to the client. That's real. There are some therapists and others who say that is a part of the therapy, is sex with the therapist. I laugh because it sounds insane to say that and that people could actually think that, but they do nonetheless. So do not try to, that's a fringe idea. I doubt there's any scientific backing. I think everything would show the opposite, that it actually creates great harm. But nonetheless, this is outlawed in Massachusetts, no matter what anybody will tell you, as rightly it should be. So, sex with your clients is not a form of helping them. It is hurting them, clearly. More here too. Other improper relationships with clients or third parties. So you can't just, not just sexual or romantic, but anything that anybody reasonable or prudent social worker in light of all the facts would say that this is likely result in exploitation or some sort of emotional or physical harm or anything else to the client. So, do not engage in business with your clients beyond the obviously client social worker. Don't frequent their stores. Don't try to sell them Avon. Don't buy from them. That sort of thing. These are things that should be not happening in that relationship. And so this is the law as well. This is not just the code. This is Massachusetts law telling you not to do this. So remember, so this could get you lose your license, get a malpractice suit against you, and criminal and civil charges against you. The nice 3 strikes there. So avoid this. I mean, it shouldn't be that hard, but yet it is a problem for people. I've read about it. I know people who this has happened to, who are social workers, unfortunately, who had gotten really in trouble for this, and rightfully so. It is shocking and surprising. You see this in the text of just how frequent this seems to happen. So avoid it, though. Cannot be any more clear on that one there. Other issues to worry about here, too, is we are a litigious society, which means in America, we like to sue each other a lot. And so anything opening yourself up to any form of malpractice or any of this can be very, very dangerous. We just seem to know this, that people like to sue. So you got to be conscious of how your decisions will be viewed in, a society that, resorts to suing each other quite frequently or, at first jump. Societal trends. Again, that's what I was talking about. You got to be aware of how some people might perceive certain things. Now with this greater and important focus on sexual misconduct, even this in workplaces, you got to be careful of jokes you might say with some friends. Not everybody's going to find funny, and it could be construed the wrong way. It should just be avoided. Maybe it does represent underlying bias, and that's why we're trying to get rid of it. But even something in joking can come off as viewed very, very wrong, and for good reasons at times. And again, within the context of the care, again, you're not the friend. There needs to be those boundaries, that sort of thing. And now let's take a look at the traditional views of these boundaries, and this goes beyond just the prohibitions we talked about, but others. So traditionally, look at the boundary. Look at there a wall between the professional and the client, and that's what I was talking about with the friendship thing. sexual relationship, there needs to be that clear, hard and fast rule, right? You're helping them, you're not their friend, that sort of thing. This would say no touching at all, no hugs, no pats on the back, no hand on the shoulder, anything, right? This is, again, keep it business, and that's it. No socializing, again, keep relationships on the clock, right? It's only about business, nothing beyond that. No contact versus social media. Again, this is all reflecting code. This is a traditional view, but we're going to talk about in a second some culturally accepted exception. So no acceptance of gifts is a big one. No gratuities, big thing. No gratuities. Why? Because it can be misconstrued. A couple things on gifts and this. One, because it could seem as reciprocal, right? And it can open people up to the idea of corruption, right? I give you something, now I expect something in return. Client gives you something, they may accept something or expect something in return, and we want to avoid even the perception of that. So the other thing, not only are we worried about the perception of a reciprocal relationship that you then owing your client something or them expecting a favor in return, it also blurs the lines, right, between the two. Other things that, because this is also a cultural thing too. I mean, at a holiday, people might want to give a small gift of appreciation, thanks, and things like that. People do this for like elementary school teachers or preschool teachers, things like that. There are rules that govern this everywhere. Usually, especially if you're working for states, there's limits on how much money can be given in gifts. It's usually a very small amount, $25. If it's anything above that, you need to report it right away to your supervisor. So say if you have to accept it or they send it to the office, and usually there are procedures like you donate it, things like that, but it has to be declared. Has to be right away, has to be declared, has to be, you can't accept it, don't try to take it under the table, that sort of thing. Now, sorry, I knocked that off. Now, what do you do if you have to, you're with the client and they want to give you a gift and you can't accept it? Again, this is something else you got to deal with delicately. You have to explain to them rules. This should also probably be up front in the intake stuff, because that's where you set all of these boundaries, really. You should not wait to the very end, once it happens in order to set the boundaries. You need to make that clear in some sort. It's part of the intake, maybe a form that they sign, something that they discuss. But again, this is hopefully the agencies you work for will have some policies on this that you could direct clients to. But this is a very important thing to make sure you stand where these boundaries are. Again, no purchasing of services or items from the client, right? No business deals. The fear here is that you can take advantage of them. You could charge them whatever you want if you're selling them something because, the client needs you, or, you're the social worker that maybe if the client is selling something or someone that their family, like that close to them, that you could try to get a better deal, cut a deal that would not be beneficial to them, you'd be taking advantage of them. So just like you're not supposed to have relationships with, sexually with the, or romantically, with clients, families, and friends. Same goes for the business dealings as well. Don't get involved with their business in any manner. Don't promote it, things like that. Don't patronize it. Don't promote it. Things you should avoid. This is a traditional view, and you're going to see a lot of this still stands. But there is more modern focus on, criticisms. This is very cold and clinical, right? It's part of gaining trust and part of helping people is when they feel comfortable with you and there's some sort of connection. And again, that is true, but there needs to be limits to it. And that's what we're really worried about here. But the criticism is that it is just too cold and clinical. There's that mass separation between the two. Or again, carefully considered exceptions, rather than as completely impenetrable. Like I said, the handshake, accepting small niceties, like you're not supposed to accept anything, like even if you go in there and they offer you a drink or something like that, you're not supposed to take it. You're not supposed to take any form of gratuity, but it is also nice when someone comes in the house, they offer them a beverage or something. There's polite ways to turn it down if they're very insistent. That could provide a problem. You could take it and not drink it, that sort of thing. But just refuse. Best is usually bring in your own drink, and that avoids that, in a reusable water bottle, something like that. There are ways that, and some cultures, when they come into your house, when you come into the house, they offer food and stuff, and automatic saying no can be seen as offensive. So you gotta carefully, but I mean, carefully tread that line. Mine is, you shouldn't take any of that. Again, it could be looked at as gratuity. Also, you never know. Most people aren't like this, but you never know if they're dosing it or trying to put something in it. Just be careful there. But there are exceptions again. Culturally settings again, a cup of tea and a cookie, you could turn it down. Again, you're not hungry, that sort of thing. But this one though, offering a beer or alcoholic drink, obviously you can't accept that. You're on the job. You can't be drinking on the job. That one shouldn't need much more explanation than that. It also it certainly blurs boundaries, right? You usually sit down for a drink with friends or something like that. Family, not someone in this instance where it's a patient-client sort of relationship. Again, there's you might have clients that are fully isolated, and so you don't want to be, they might put their hand on your shoulder or theirs for that human touch. I'd be very careful with that, but yeah, I could imagine some instances they'd be very rare. Would that be okay? And again, what is respectful and appropriate? Again, the handshake, that sort of thing. I guess a high five would be fine. So along there, but you really, really want to be careful about this. I cannot stress this enough. This should be obvious to many. Hopefully, it should be obvious from other settings and comparatively to other settings where no unwanted touching, that sort of thing. But much of the traditional view does still stand, though, and you see that in the code where no accepting gratuities, no sexual contact. No dual relationships, where there's a threat of an imbalance there. Because we're going to look at, there are some dual role relationships that might not be avoidable, especially in small places. Like, say, if you're both attend the same church, as long as you had both been there before and you can keep, the two separate, don't interact at church, you don't discuss the counseling sessions or anything else going on in the care work, that would be fine. But that seems unreasonable to say. Someone to leave a church or, any religious institution. Sorry, not just a church, synagogue, a mosque, anything like that, a temple. You don't want to, you can't be asking people to change things like that. But we'll see. There's some other examples later in the slideshow. We'll look at them specifically where the question of do you take yourself out of the situation becomes a little bit harder. Certain ways. Oops, I went too fast. Yeah, mutual storytelling. This is what some say. We covered this before. It's the idea where some argue that client and social workers should be upfront and they should lay everything on the table there. And so, mutual storytelling also helps in showing people that you understand, that you empathize, that thing. I'd be very careful there again because it can blur the lines of, are we friends now? Or are we just, is this a helping relationship, professional relationship, which is what you want there. This is all related to, distinguishing between primary and secondary relationships. And really this, I think, this is intuitive. Once you see it, primary relationships are personal, family, close friends, where there are few, if any, limits. Think of how you are with some family and friends, things you guys talk about, the way you act towards each other, that is probably very different than your secondary relationships. So think, business, at the office, at school, that sort of thing. Again, secondary relationships are everything else, and they're often called professional relationships, right? So primary is your family and those your close inner circle, that sort of thing. People you're close with, you spend time with on a social basis, that sort of thing. Again, secondary is often the professional one. It's limited based on services. It's not a permanent connection. It's not as deep, and we need to know those connections. But the one thing, though, is as we're talking about, and it shows that in the Massachusetts laws, especially here, is that according to Mass, when you have this social worker or helping profession relationship with a client, the clienthood never ends, in the sense that once a client, always a client, and the rules limiting and guiding your interactions apply even after they become your client. And again, as the code said, as the code of regulations for Massachusetts said, even just a single diagnostic consultation makes them your client going ahead. And so all of these rules apply going forward. So if the client in any of these clinical settings, we want them to be a secondary relationship, not a primary relationship. And so we're going to go in and start here on the next video and talk about dual relationships and look at some examples of and ways we would deal with them. And so see you in the next video.